Hi, this is Tori. Katie and I focused on Lee Swanson's interview for this project. There were several main points in the interview that really stood out to us. First, he had a lot to say about the challenges in early research with delineating nomothetic groups, specifically that cognitive variables were not well defined in early cognitive training research, and that even today, some of the variables that moderate treatment effects and the ways in which they function are a bit unclear.
Swanson discussed how researchers had previously focused solely on teaching cognitive processes separate from academics. However, there was not strong evidence of generalization and academic improvement. The field then swung towards focusing solely on academics and ignoring these cognitive processes. He argued that there needs to be more integration of processes and academics in order to improve student outcomes.
He also suggested that one under-researched area that would examine these processes is the study of students who have variations in their behavioral abilities despite cognitive similarities. For instance, why can't some students with normal intelligence read? Or why can students with very different word reading abilities perform similarly on some assessments of comprehension? What are the pathways used by students who may need to compensate for deficit areas? We compared his perspective to a few other researchers who were interviewed in this module and our perceptions of a few other researchers we have interacted with. Stan Dino's interview was particularly interesting because, despite the apparently idiographic nature of data-based individualization, he considers progress monitoring to be a nomothetic process. He seemed doubtful that a particular cognitive process that would mediate treatment intervention consistently would be discovered, and is more interested in helping teachers individualize nomothetic interventions across dimensions such as time and focus to meet individual need. I got to speak with Matt on Module 3, and his approach of incremental rehearsal really stayed with me, in part because it addressed an observation I made in my own practice, that students seem to have a stop point after which instruction became less effective. The incremental rehearsal approach seems to really capture an idiographic intervention, as many dimensions of the intervention are truly individualized, focusing on words that an individual doesn't know and the student's previously calculated acquisition rate.
Deborah Simmons' work is nomothetic and is a good example of Swanson's statement that current research largely ignores cognitive training. She addresses cognitive weaknesses through instructional design. Overall, her research has primarily investigated the design of instruction by determining best practices. However, these practices are specialized in order to meet the needs of special education students. Some of her recent work has moved towards a more idiographic, individualizing for those students who do not respond to well-designed instruction. Some of Doug Fuchs's research falls in line with Lee Swanson's suggestion that academics and cognitive processes should be more integrated. He has examined the effects of reading comprehension interventions with and without retelling, wherein the retelling task is aimed at increasing working memory skills to determine if improving in this domain-specific working memory task leads to increases in reading comprehension.
We were still curious, after listening to this interview, what types of assessments and research would really show the different routes that Swanson referred to and suggested that we research. Also, to what extent cognitive variables truly lead to idiographic approaches as opposed to simply further refining nomothetic categories.
Swanson's suggestion that we need to determine how students use different paths to arrive at the same outcome was of great interest to us, especially trying to determine what factors might predict students taking a different path, and using that understanding to help them when they struggle to have positive outcomes in other areas. We also discussed how this type of research would seem to refine our understanding of various categories of students, but would not necessarily be truly individualized, at least not until some sort of assessment exists that would be feasible to use in the classroom.
We both really enjoyed listening to and reflecting on this interview and found that it helped refine our perspectives on how students learn and areas for research.